And here we are. Let's see, that took 28 minutes.
I hope this is working.
We think it's working. Somebody will comment in a minute. So
Oh
surprise! I don't even think this was announced because this was supposed to be on Pam Russell's page, not my page, but now it's on both pages, we hope. So Pam had, for those of you who don't know Pam, she is from Perfectly Holistic, correct? And she does fun and games with us with muscle testing because she's really good at it. So we were just taping a warehouse muscle testing game, fun, whatever.
Yes.
So it was great. And then I was supposed to be live on her platform for an interview about TCVM with kitty cats, and the computer software would not play well with us today at all.
No, that's the first time. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't think no, we have had a couple of issues with some of the platforms.
Yeah,
once in a while.
This is the first time I've ever had it on mine, so I am so sorry. They're getting a phone call from me today and going, what's going on?
Well, you know, it's funny because one day we were trying to do something and we had all kinds of problems with it. And Nick Thompson and Connor Brady have their raw pet medics on our page at 2:00 on Tuesdays. And it took them like 45 minutes to get in that day as well, because they were having the same technical difficulties. So sometimes it's actually the program or the platform is just, they're having an issue. So
yeah, I'm sorry, but thank you guys for joining us, because we are so excited to talk about this topic, because people think it's
Joey says, did you press connect on your Facebook page?
I did.
She did. Is it not showing up on her page?
Is it not showing up yet?
Did you click go live?
I did.
She did?
Yep. I did. I put live.
Is it showing up on our page? Oh, it is. Yay. Okay.
Okay.
But it's not showing up on hers? No.
That is so weird. Okay.
Okay. It's the technical voodoo gods are doing something at your house today.
I really think so. I really think so. But you know what I can do is I can always just go share from your page.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work as well, but we'll go for it anyway. So this technically is your interview, not mine. So I'm going to let you lead, even though we're on my page. You are the leader of the show today.
Well, thank you, and I'm excited to chat with you about this topic. I'm going to try to find your page on Facebook real quick and see if I can get this shared. Here we go. There you are. Okay. There you are. And I'm going to share to my page. See if we can get this rolling. Okay. So
we are on my page. I can see it on mine.
Yeah, okay. I can see it on yours, and hopefully it's not on mine.
We'll find out.
Technology is my bane.
Okay.
Ask all my friends. Okay.
We're all going to take a deep breath.
Yes. Yes. I shouldn't stress about this thing. Can't control it.
No.
So, Dr. Judy, when people think of traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, they think of you. And or at least I do.
And I wonder how my instructors at the Chi Institute think about that.
You know what?
They are really busy teaching. They are not really busy social media people.
No. That means you're making an impact, and you are teaching people how to think outside the proverbial box and look at alternative healing and look at modalities that have been around for thousands of years that have worked for people. And now, we're bringing this wonderful information and knowledge into the pet space. And I think you're doing a beautiful job of it.
Thanks.
So, and I know most of the time people go to you for dog stuff. So yes, we'll talk about kitties. I was doing cartwheels, not literally. But
actually, it's unfortunately a bad habit of mine. I'll say, well, when you're doing blah, blah, blah with your dog, and like I was lecturing at the AHVMA, the Holistic Vet Association, all day on Monday. And I kept saying, so when you're feeding your dog or looking at the energetics of your dog, and I'm like, look, when I say dog, just insert cat because it comes out, but it's really no different from one species to another. It's no different. The food energetics, for instance, and the way acupuncture works and the way Tuina works, it is no different no matter the species, whether it's human, donkey, horse, cat, rabbit, bird, dog, it doesn't matter. It goes across the board. But cats are not small dogs. And so we do have to look at them a little bit differently just in how we do things in general. But Chinese medicine principles apply pretty much across the board.
Across the board. Yeah. So share with us, like, what are the biggies that you want cat people to know about TCVM?
Oh, man. So there's a lot that can be done with TCVM. I mean, I love acupuncture, but in order to have acupuncture done on your kitty, that requires getting your kitty in that dreaded box, driving your kitty in that dreaded, loud, rattly, foreign moving thing, taking them to a strange environment that they absolutely don't like the smell of, don't like the sounds of, and then get handled by somebody they don't know. I mean, most cats, that's like, you know, so I think that cats don't get acupuncture as much. It's funny. I had a cat, great client. I had a couple really good cat owners bringing their cats in routinely for acupuncture. One was a cat who had had a fibrosarcoma from a vaccine on her hind leg and had the leg amputated. Oh gosh, she was only like 5 maybe when the leg was amputated. But because the biomechanics of her body were then weird because she was missing a leg, she brought her in once a month for acupuncture and chiropractic. Which was very beneficial so that we kept everything in balance and kept everything aligned. And then I had another cat that came in with feline hyperesthesia syndrome, which is where they'll be sitting there absolutely calm. And then suddenly they look around at their back or they leap up in the air and then run as fast as they can. Like they just had an electric shock, which frankly, that's kind of what's happened. It's, you know, we think it's a pinched nerve or an electrical impulse or something. Those respond incredibly well to acupuncture and chiropractic and laser, those kinds of things. So I had another cat who was coming in for that, and she had already been to multiple veterinarians. The cat had been on all kinds of medications, none of which were helping. And she brought the cat in. I think we did chiropractic and acupuncture and laser at the beginning. It was kind of like, no stone unturned. That cat did great. And she got to the point where she didn't want acupuncture needles anymore. So we're like, okay, well, we'll, you know, and then she didn't want the chiropractic either, but she liked the laser. And then she got to the point where she just hid under the bed and said, I'm not going anymore. And we said, okay, you're doing great. And she was doing great at that point.
Yeah.
So
she's like, I don't need to go.
Exactly. So you got to kind of honor the cats, but cats are a little bit different. We do have the 5 personalities. Gray cats really want to be metal or water. So the metal element is ruled by the lungs and large intestine. And shocking, my all gray cat Star, who's one of my favorite kitties of all time, I rescued her from a shelter when she was about 6 weeks old. We had just moved to a farm and Gwen was, oh gosh, maybe 8 years old. And I took her to the shelter and I said, we're going to pick out 2 kittens. We need one for in the house and we need one for in the barn for mouse control. And so we brought them both home and she had to keep them both in her bedroom for a few weeks until they were old enough to make a decision. And so she picked Star, the little gray one, to be the house kitty. And Star lived to be 21. But she was a metal personality, which means they like everything the same. So Star got really ticked off every time we brought in a new cat or a new dog, which was, you know, almost every week at our house. So, or if we moved houses or, you know, any change, she just didn't like change. And shockingly, knowing that the metal element is ruled by lungs and large intestine, she died of lung cancer at 21.
Wow.
So, you know, a lot of times if we know what their personality is, then we can We also had a metal Cocker Spaniel. She liked everything the same as well. She liked the people she liked, and she didn't like anybody else. Typical Cocker kind of. But she also died of lung cancer at 17.
Wow.
So, it's sort of like, I should have predicted that a little bit, and maybe I should have balanced out their system a little. But 21 for a cat and 17 for a dog, I was feeling like we did pretty well. And when I discovered their cancer, it was very, very advanced. So,
Right.
But from a TCVM perspective, it's interesting. And I got this question a lot at AHVMA. Most TCVM practitioners are against raw feeding because the digestive system likes the food at room temperature, and it likes it like slow cooking. Slow cooker is really probably the ideal from a TCVM standpoint, because the food is already a little bit digested from having, kind of simmered around in its juices for a very long time. And it's kind of closer to body temperature, and then we can feed it when it's, kind of cooled to body temperature. So that is what most practitioners really like. I think, and I'm a huge proponent of raw feeding. I think that what they think of when they think of raw feeding is this cold,
frozen
glop, either frozen or out of the fridge. But if you think of what a cat would eat in the wild, and I have a lot of outdoor barn kitties, they are eating mice, they are eating birds, they are eating grasshoppers and crickets and whatever comes their way. They don't kill it, put it in the refrigerator, and then come back for it later. They don't kill it, put it in the slow cooker, and come back for it later. They kill it and they eat it while it's still fresh and warm. So it's at body temperature. So if we are feeding raw food to our cats, as long as we are feeding it at, 72 to 96-ish degrees, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that from a TCVM standpoint. So
So about room temperature, or a little bit cooler.
Or a little bit warmer. So room temperature, you figure, is like 72. So somewhere between 72 and about 85, 95 is, if you want, if they like it really warm. And so a lot of our older kitties who are not eating as well, we have to release the aromas for them. Their sense of smell isn't as good as they age. Their sense of taste may not be as good, and their digestibility may not be as good. So for our senior kitties, a lot of times that's when I'm like, okay, let me go to that gently cooked meal. But again, it has to be served at that temperature. You can't make a big batch, throw it in the fridge, pull it out of the fridge, and throw it in a bowl. It has to get warmed up before feeding.
Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because no cats would regularly just pick a cold meal. That's not their norm.
Right. Like even so my cats love freeze-dried chicken hearts, turkey hearts. They're freeze-dried, so they're kept in a bag in the cabinet. They will attack them. If I give them a raw chicken heart or turkey heart out of the refrigerator, they won't get near it. Like they'll walk over, they'll look at it and go, don't think so. But if I warm it up or gently cook it, they're all over it, and it has to be served warm, because when it's cold, it turns them off. First of all, it's not releasing the aroma. And I mean, it's just not enticing to them at all. So if you're trying to switch your cats to raw feeding, and you're giving them something that is not warm enough for them, try getting it a little warmer. You may have better luck with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about the 5 different personalities and the elements, because I want people who are listening to see if they can pick out which element their cat is. I can tell you which mine are, but I want to hear you describe.
Okay. So the metals are the ones that really like structure. They tend to be the gray kitties, but they really like structure. Like if you go away for the weekend, they're going to get like stress cystitis. They're gonna it's just gonna throw them for a loop. So if you have a regimented routine, then a metal personality cat is going to get along really well with you. If you're like me and you're bringing in new animals, doing a lot of rescue work, fosters, they're going to be mad. Like my metal cat Star, she peed everywhere because she was so angry and I mean, she didn't make friends with any of the newbies. She was like, no, my house been here the longest. Nope. So the metals may be prone to more respiratory problems. So coughing, sneezing, sinus issues. They also, because it's lung and large intestine, if you don't have enough moisture in their diet, lungs do not like dryness. So they don't like, dry heat, that sort of thing, hot, forced air heat. They don't like fall is kind of a bad time of year and winter because the air is dry. So they're more prone to respiratory things. So a humidifier is good for them. And if they don't have a high moisture diet, those are the cats that are going to get that really bad constipation because the large intestine also needs that moisturizing and lubricate. So that's our metal kitties. Water element, they're the ones that hide all the time. They are afraid of everybody. Somebody comes in the house, they are nowhere to be seen. They're under a bed, and they're not aggressive unless you corner them. So if they're hiding under the bed and you're like climbing under there trying to grab at them, they're going to slap you or bite you. 'Cause they're not prone to doing that, but they're just they are the typical scaredy cat. That's the scaredy cats. So let's see. Then we have earth personalities. Those are your big orange purr boxes who tend to be obese. They may have digestive issues because earth is ruled by the spleen and stomach, which is basically the digestive system. So if we're going to have IBD, diarrhea issues, that sort of thing, we may see it with those guys. But earth animals, I mean, they're the purr boxes. You sit down there in your lap, somebody new comes and they're like, oh, I love you too. And they're rubbing up and down on their legs and they love all the other animals. Like they are very nurturing. And like, if you're crying, your earth animal is going to be the first one who's going to be like, oh, what's wrong with you? But they tend to be kind of orange or yellow, like the lighter orange and yellow. And they tend to be fat. So don't feed them dry kibble. So let's see. We have fire, which are the redheads. They are really outgoing, very vocal, and it's a happy, like, hi, I'm here. Did you want to come see me? Like they're just in the middle of everything. They're going to be on your kitchen counter. They're going to be knocking things off the furniture because everything's a toy, everything's a game. And they're kind of like, they're energetic. They're all over the place. They tend to be leaner than those earth kids who are just round. Earth, Garfield.
Yep.
So let's see. Then we have our wood is the last one. Wood are cranky. They want to be the boss. They're the alpha. That's me. They want to be the alpha, and everything's fine as long as it's going their way. But you walk by and they'll just reach out and slap you. Like,
keep you in line.
I'm mad. They are ruled by the liver and gallbladder, so they're going to be prone to problems in that area. So we may see more pancreatitis, the portal triad disease, that sort of thing with these guys more often. They can have bowel issues, but I don't find liver qi stagnation and like the wood element aggressive stuff that we see in dogs. I don't find it to be as bad in cats, mostly because I think dogs try to hold it in and cats are just like, yeah, I'm just going to slap you when you walk by. I had a calico. She lived on the dryer. That's just where she chose. My laundry room was, on the main floor in the middle of the house. And, she just chose that was where she would have her little bed. So we, made her a nice little area. And it was right by the back door. So if anybody wanted to walk out the back door, you had to get slapped by the cat all the way. I mean, it was like, you're in my space.
Get out of here.
Yeah. She would just reach down and slap the dogs. And she actually ended up dying of a bile duct cancer.
Wow.
So, it's like, their personality, where the problem is going to show up.
Yeah. And you can be proactive in those areas.
We can be more proactive. God, she died a long time ago. I don't even think I was doing TCVM. maybe I was a little bit. It was a very long time ago. So it's one of those things like, what did I know? So yeah, I mean, it basically looking at it now, it's like, oh, I could feed them to keep them more in balance. I could use tongue and pulse diagnosis. Tongue diagnosis on cats is a little bit harder. They don't, they're not really good at opening their mouth and showing you what's going on. It's a lot trickier. So yeah, so we have 5 personality types with our kitty cats. And if we can figure out their personality types, then we know what they're more prone to. And so maybe we know what monitoring we need to do. Do we need to be doing ultrasounds? Do we need to be doing chest x-rays? Do we need to be doing lab work? Lung cancer isn't going to show up on blood work.
No.
Like I found it. I forget which one of them. One of them, I found it accidentally. I took them in for x-rays for something else. I went, huh.
What's that doing there?
Exactly. Like, oh, poo. So, when I say I didn't do anything to treat it, because it's like, oh crap, I didn't know that was there. I mean, even my little dog with bladder cancer right now, it took me about 8 months. I knew he had something somewhere. It just took me that long to figure out where, because lab work's normal, urine's normal, everything's normal, dog's playing normal.
Yep.
So
exactly. So I have a water cat. She hides, but she loves to go in the backyard, even though she gets scared and spooked by the dogs who bark on the other sides of the fence. But she still wants to go out there. And when she comes in, she's got the real big eyeballs, and she's very vocal, and you can tell she's upset and she's afraid. And she'll go hide in the closet in her little safe space,
Yep.
Gunner is my earth cat, and he's a worrier, and he's very vocal. If he's upset about something, he's very vocal, and he lets you know about it. But he's also got the sensitive tummy, so that makes a lot of sense. But he's definitely a lover boy. He loves cuddles and friendly and all that. And then my new kittens, I would say Skylar is the fire cat, because she is a pistol. Everything's a toy. She's figured out how to launch herself on everything, like jumping, literally bouncing off the walls, grabbing the sides of the sofa as if she's going to Velcro, just everything's a toy, everything. And she is just like from 0 to 100 in a second.
Yep.
She's just got that kind of energy. And then Breeze, her sister, is probably an earth cat. She's very tender. She's very sweet. She seeks out love.
Yep.
She talks. She's like, meow, meow. When she wants your love, she comes over and just meows and climbs up, into your lap and just wants held. So I think that's her personality. So it's interesting how different they are. Now, knowing that they're so different, or once you figure out the personality or the element, how can we as cat parents best support their diet?
Well, so if we look at their element, there are certain things that feed that element. And then there are certain things that will help calm down that element. So if their element is excessive, like my wood cat that literally was slapping everybody, I probably should have fed her things to damp down the wood. So every element has a parent that feeds it, and then every element has a grandparent that keeps it under control. So for wood, the grandparent would be, and we have all this on a personality quiz on our website that people can put in to figure out. So like, my wood cat, who was a little excessive, which clearly she made a tumor there. Yeah. If I had fed her metal element, which the color for metal is white. So we want to feed white things. So like white meat turkey, white meat chicken, white fish would have been very good for her. And then also things to help drain the wood, which is a little trickier in cats because we can only use little tiny bits. But I could have used like a powdered dandelion root or dandelion leaf, or a tincture, something that I could have used to help drain the liver. So once we know what their personality is, then we try to keep it in balance and not allow it to become excessive. So for instance, I'm a wood personality. So I'm a very strong wood personality. My metal has been trying for decades to chop down that tree. And so now my metal element is actually very weak. So where's my weak spot? My weak spot's now my respiratory, because that's lungs. And I'm prone to dryness. So, and that's just because I've worn out my metal by being so strong wood. So like a really strong fire personality, water puts out fire. So, which makes perfect sense. If you think, what do you use to put out a fire? You use water. So the water element. So we would look at things that feed the water element, which are what I call baby things. So because it's kidneys and it's the beginning and end of life. So we feed kidney, we feed fish, we feed small nuts and seeds and sprouts. And again, in cats, you know, some of those kinds of things we're going to feed in tiny amounts because they're basically metasauruses. But we want to be sure that we support their water element so that it doesn't burn out. Like we got to keep that fire element just, you know, down just a little, balance them. So every element has a balancer. And so we need to look at those and say, okay, well, you know, as time goes on, I know that I've got this earth element cat who might be prone to obesity because that's what they do, might be prone to some bowel issues because that's what they do. So how do I keep that in check? Well, if it needs to be strengthened, we can feed earth or we can feed fire, which is the parent. If it needs to be brought back down a little bit, then we feed the wood element because that's what dams up the earth. So just different ways to look at it. We have all that explained on the personality profile, so you don't have to remember any of that.
Oh, that's cool. And thank you for dropping the link to that, because I want people to go look at that, and I'm going to go look at that too, because I'm so excited.
It's fun. It's just, you know, the thing is you can be feeding a commercial diet and that's fine. But maybe when you look at the personality of your pet and the things that feed that personality or feed what keeps that personality kind of in check, you can still stick with commercial diets, but maybe you need to switch up your protein occasionally, or maybe you need to just add a little herbal tincture or a little bit of that fresh herb or vegetable, which most cats will eat really well. For instance, the earth element. So while the metal element likes moisture, lungs and large intestine, because we don't want to have the dry cough and the irritation to the airways, and we don't want to have constipation. So the metal element loves moisture. The earth element, on the other hand, does not like moisture. If it gets too damp, we end up with, well, obesity is actually a form of dampness. And then we end up with some GI issues. So for them, we want to be more warming and drying. So the earth animals don't like cold and damp. So you can also look at the season of the year. So if you have your earth cat, we're going to have to warm him up and dry things out a little bit in the winter. So we might want to feed him more chicken or venison and ginger, things like that in the winter. But in the summer, he might get a little too hot. We could back off on that. So we can also look at seasonality. So there's so many different pieces that we can put into it.
Yeah, it's fascinating though. It gives people a lot of tools, you know.
It does. Looking back through my veterinary career, and looking at, you know, traditional medicine pre-learning TCVM versus what my patients got after learning TCVM and food therapy and how to balance things out. There's such a huge difference in what I was able to accomplish and the health span and lifespan of the animals.
Absolutely. Huge. What do you recommend for the water cats? I'm thinking of Aylin, like, and specifically, I forget, you know, what puts out the water. Is it there?
Earth.
Right. Okay.
Earth dams up the water.
Okay.
Thank you, Joey.
Awesome.
There we go. There's the little, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going around the outside, we have the parents. So fire is the parent of earth. Earth is the parent of metal. Metal is the parent of water. Water is the parent of wood. Wood feeds the fire. So if you think about it, how do you grow
Cycle.
plants? How do you grow plants? You water them. And how do you feed a fire? You throw wood on the fire. What happens when the fire burns out? You're left with ash that adds mineral and stuff to the soil. And then the earth it compresses to make metals. So, and then we can, look at how things are controlled. Metal axe chops down the tree. The wood dams up the earth. The earth dams up the water. The water puts out the fire, and the fire melts the metal.
Yes. It's so interesting.
It is.
I guess it was from the ancient Chinese people that
so
right?
Like this is really thousands and thousands of years. We actually have a human personality profile quiz on the website as well. I mean, they just observed the seasonality, and that's why they have 5 seasons. Earth is late summer, so they actually have 5 seasons. So they observed what happened with the 2 bodies and people with the changes of seasons. And then they looked at, what problems they were seeing during each of those seasons. So for instance, we're coming into fall and the weather is changing, at least here, from very hot, very humid to we've got wind, the air is getting drier, the temperatures are coming down. So, then they look at that and all of a sudden it's like, oh, everybody's getting respiratory stuff. So we look at it and say, oh, all the kids are going back to school. That's why everybody's, passing the germs around and we're getting colds. Well, there is that, but there's also the change of season, which is affecting the metal element because this is the season for that. And so it's affecting that element and causing that drying. So
yes, it's so interesting. So what are some of the ways, like if a person is wanting to know how they can best supplement or add some supplements to support their cat's personality, do you have any suggestions? Because we know cats don't really like pills and they don't really like stinky,
they don't like anything.
Herbs. Let's just face it, cats are cats. They have their own, they're very strong opinions.
They have very strong opinions. So that's why sometimes herbal tinctures can sometimes be a little bit easier. Some of the concentrated powders are not too bad. And some of them really don't have much taste and some of them they like. Like ginger is a nice warming herb. Fresh ginger, most cats like it. Most cats like pumpkin, which is warming and it's a great fiber source, moisturizing for the bowel. Mushrooms, most cats will eat mushrooms. They don't have a ton of taste, so little bits of mushroom powder. Reishi tends to be bitter, but a lot of the mushrooms are not, and those are great for GI health. So sometimes you just have to figure, and it may be that you have to do it with whole foods. So like I said, it might be a protein change. And it's really interesting. Like if you, for instance, sprouts are really good, like early baby grasses. And how many people grow wheatgrass or the little, trays of sprouts or grass for their cats, and the cats are over there like
chomping
and picking what they like. So a lot of times it's having a few options and putting out and seeing if your cat gravitates to it at all. It's amazing. Like with my outdoor kitties, I see them out there in different weed patches and herb patches and choosing. Like, I need a little of this. And they will actually go out there and do that. So sometimes it's a matter of giving them some choices.
No, I love that idea. And Julianne Thorne and I are real big on self-selection because cats know what they need.
Exactly.
And they like options. It's like, today I feel like I need this. And tomorrow I feel like I need this. Like my cat.
Well, and that's where her herb gardens become, can be, I mean, it's really the same thing. So you might look at what your cat's personality is and say, ooh, like we got a little bit too much of that going on, or it's, you know, there's a weakness. And the personality profile shows you what the excesses and the weaknesses are. But then you could look, there are great, like some of it's on my site, but they're from the human side. I think the website is tcm.org, might be calm.
Okay.
But there is one, or maybe it's TCM food, but there is one where you can literally put any food or herb in the search engine and it'll tell you the properties of that food, what meridians and what element it affects.
Wow.
Whether it's warming or cooling, pungent, sweet, bitter. So there are things out there. So if you're like, ooh, I think my cat needs this, you know, then you can go get some of those herbs. And let's face it, an herb is an herb. You can use it in your own cooking or for whatever you want to. You could look at something like Julianne's herb gardens and say, oh, well, that would, like, I have used her herb gardens, and you know, you put out 10 herbs and put the cat there with the 10 herbs, and some of them they will just chow down and eat every bit of it. Others they're rolling around in, others they're trying to bury it. They're, you know, trying to get rid of it. They're pretty good at that.
Yeah, they're pretty smart about that. It's too funny. Now talk to me about a cat who eats grass. Is there an imbalance perhaps?
Maybe it's probably an imbalance in the microbiome, and they may not be getting enough fiber. Sometimes they actually truly are cleansing their gut. So it can be that. And like I said, if you're growing those early, like if you let your cat outside when the first little spring grass is coming up, they may go out there and graze like a cow. They love that really baby stuff. So, you know, sometimes growing those little grass gardens is a really cool, fun thing for your kitties.
Absolutely. I know mine like to go out and eat the tall, skinny blades of grass that are really super green and just look really, really healthy. Even though I'll have the cat grass, I'm like, what is that? Chopped liver, you know?
It's a different one.
It's different, and I want that one.
Self-selecting.
Oh, it's so true. They're so funny. Oh, this is so interesting. Okay, so in terms of therapies, what are your favorite? I mean, we talked a little bit about acupuncture, and is there anything that you recommend? Like, is there anything that people can do at home to support meridians, maybe like acupressure or massage, like that?
So the 4 Paws 5 Directions book, I think it has dog diagrams. It may have some cat diagrams in there too. But it's 4 Paws 5 Directions. It's an old book, but it's acupressure, and it's acupressure for different problems. So, you know, arthritis or GI issues. Oh, here you go. Joey happens to have it sitting here.
Thank you, Joey.
Cheryl Schwartz. Yeah, it's Cats and Dogs, guide to Chinese medicine for cats and dogs. It's a great book. I think everybody should have it on their shelf, because it just, you know, your cat's vomiting. It's like, what acupressure point can I use? Blank. And it tells you how to do it. It's just a great way to be able to kind of self-treat at home and see what you can get done. You know, I would love to say that all cats love, you know, petting, massage. They don't. There are some, like those wood personalities, probably not going to happen. Metal personalities, maybe. And you also have to remember that cats are really good at hiding pain.
Yes.
So, and I did a lecture on it, but it's really incredible. It's like 80% of cats over age 10 have arthritis on their x-rays, even though they're not showing you any pain. Maybe they're not jumping as high. Maybe they're not jumping as often. Maybe they're not climbing as high, but most of them, push comes to shove, they'll still get on top of the refrigerator if they need to. So when you go to do massage, you have to be cognizant of, they may have some arthritis. They may have some pain. You may find painful areas, and they may reach around and let you know that. So start with a very light touch and see what they'll put up with.
Mhm.
And, I kind of like using like a 2-finger thing and just kind of going along their body lightly and seeing if I'm getting any ooh
Yeah.
or, any reaction
Mm.
anywhere. And then see if they'll let me work on that area a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, if they're reacting, it's usually going to be starting really softly, or maybe starting slightly in front of that area, particularly if it's along the back. A lot of times, where the tense muscles are, the chiropractic problem or the stuck
Mhm.
problem is actually in front of that, toward the
Mhm.
head. So start at the front and kind of work your way back, and
Yeah.
then see how close you can get to the stuck area. Keep working there a little bit. See if you can get that to start releasing over time. But if your cat is running away from you, don't chase them down to massage some more. They don't want it. If they're moving into you or rolling towards you or going, ooh, or if they present a different part of their body, they're like, yeah, that's nice of you to do it, but you're in the wrong spot. Could you do it over
Yeah.
here?
Do this one instead. It's true. Um, let's talk about emotions a little bit. So, with emotions in Chinese medicine and the whole TCVM or TCM and all the emotional stuff, I think it's fascinating how there are emotions that are stored in the particular organs and glands and tissues that can correspond to give you clues that something is out of balance,
hmm
you know?
So a wood with chi stagnation, they're angry. They're frustrated and they're angry.
Yes.
They're gonna lash out. That's my cat on the dryer.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
the waters, they're fearful. They're hiding.
Yep.
Um, the earths are joyful, so they talk. They want to be petted. Sorry, the earths are fires are joyful. They're the life of the party. They want to talk. They want to be petted. They want to jump around. The earths, they worry about everybody
Mhm.
because they want everybody to get along.
Mhm.
Um, the metals like their structure. The metals kind of march around the house, like just patrolling the area. Um, and let's see, who did I leave out? The waters,
Fire,
they're fearful, they're
fire,
hiding. Fires are
fire.
joyful. They're gonna talk. They're gonna come running to see what's going on. They have FOMO. They do not want to miss anything.
Yeah.
Um, and earths are just kind of in the middle of things. Like they're the ones you trip over because they just want to be near you. They want to
Yeah.
be rubbing your leg. They want to.
Oh, it's so I know, they're so sweet. I mean, every personality has its endearments. But then
Mhm.
but what's interesting is when something is off, it can be very apparent if you know their element.
Yeah.
If you
Yep.
really understand what their personality and their element really
Mhm.
represents, and you
Yep.
notice something is different or
Mhm.
something seems to be changing, that can be a clue like, wait a minute, you're not doing that anymore. Are you
Right.
okay?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
are you okay? Something going on I need to know about, you know?
Exactly.
So where could people go to help them figure out, like, if there's not a TCM vet close by, is there a website, like a resource for vets who practice TCVM and do remote sessions for people? Do you know of anything like that?
A lot of the TCVM vets are doing remote sessions.
Okay,
We actually have probably 7 or 8 on our list that we work with.
cool.
So if people email us, we can certainly provide them with the
Mhm.
list of. I'm 99% sure all of ours are TCVM trained. A lot of them have training in other modalities as well.
Yeah.
Um, because it can be hard to find a TCVM practitioner. And unfortunately, a lot of them may practice acupuncture, but
Mhm.
none of the other stuff.
Right.
So you may find somebody who's actually pretty traditional and wants to prescribe a lot of vaccines and drugs, but they do acupuncture. So it's a little bit of a,
Yeah.
and again, like I said, dragging your cat back and forth for acupuncture, like I did it quite often for cats with kidney disease. And depending on the personality of the cat, it can be very, very effective. You're probably
Mhm.
not going to get as many sessions with a cat as you would with a dog, just because of that whole going to the vet thing. And I would
Yeah.
strongly recommend that people teach their cats to not mind going to the vet from very early on, like make them love. I have a cat carrier that stays open in my house all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
My dogs go in it and hang out. My cats go in it and hang out. It's just one more bed.
Yeah.
So when you do shut the door on them, they're not like, bah.
Exactly. And go for little practice drives. Just go down the street, 5 minutes, come home. Wasn't
My
that fun? Yeah.
my
We didn't go to the vet.
my best car cat ever was a kitten that I adopted at work. I'd only been in practice for about a year, and he was brought in. A dog had gotten a hold of him. And broke both of his back legs.
Oh,
He was like 6 weeks old. So this is way back in the days of plaster casts. So I put his
yeah.
whole back end in a plaster cast and took him home. And I'd never owned a cat. I didn't know anything. And I had to take him in, and he was growing. So I had to change his little plaster cast every week. So he went back and forth. My work was an hour and a half from home, and
Oh my.
he drove back and forth with me on the front seat a lot for the first 6 months of his life. He's the
Mhm.
best car cat ever. He was just like,
Mhm.
cool. He was as good as any dog I've ever had. He
That's
was
all he
awesome.
knew.
Yeah.
It
He
was
was like,
just
oh,
normal.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
So I would
That's so cool.
strongly recommend, especially if you get them as kittens, like just start taking them places, get them used to
Yeah.
the carrier. Like our litters that were born at the farm, they lived in the house,
Mhm.
but mama had a carrier in the little room that they were in. She had an open carrier, so if she wanted to, she could take the kittens in there. So they're just like, oh, we just go in the box.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Let's talk real quick before we wrap up about the Chinese herbs. Talk to me about tea pills and cats.
Well, so tea pills, first of all, they're really tiny. They look like little black ball bearings.
Mhm.
But what they are is a super concentrated herb, and then it's mixed with they call it Chinese wax, but it makes it into a very, very, very hard formulation.
Mhm.
Uh, when you give them, do not just open your cat's mouth and shove it down. They have to be crushed. So you have
Mm.
to basically kind of make it back into a powder, and then you have a couple different ways you can do it. So one of the ways they taught us how to get uh, herbal powders and tea pills down the kitty is they would use like a coffee filter type paper and make like a little ice cream cone out of it with a little hole
Mhm.
in the bottom, and basically tilt the cat's head back and with the mouth open, and take the little cone with the pills and put that in. I never tried that. I usually have much better luck either using a liquid tincture that I can give directly,
Mhm.
or I will mix the powders in a very tiny amount of something that I know they cannot resist.
Yeah.
And I have tried all kinds of weird things, like sour cream works really well a lot of times. And I know that's, not a health food, but most
And it's
cats will
just a
go for it.
tiny amount.
Right. Butter is
Yeah.
really good. They'll go for that. Some of them that really like fish, a little bit of sardine that'll hide. Sardines hide a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I give them that before I let them have their meal, because it's like, I know you're a little bit hungry. Here, we're going to have this. Okay, great. Now you can have everything else that
Yeah.
I need you to have. So, cats are not the most fun. I have done a lot less of the consultations with cats than with dogs, because it's even when I make diets and recipes for cats, I can design it. Your cat may not eat it. So they're
Mhm.
definitely trickier, and cats don't like leftovers. So you can't make a 3-pound batch of food to last a month because they don't like leftovers. So you tend to be making small batches pretty often. And then we still want them to have some rotation in there. And cats are not small dogs. Dogs are definitely easier to fool.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
hide things from dogs, and they're like, okay. Cats are
Yeah.
like,
I know, they start to look at you, and they'll walk up to their bowl and sniff it, and they'll look at you like, "What'd you do to my food?" And then they'll
yep,
just kind of back away,
yep.
and then they'll
So
turn around and
One
No.
of my cats just had to have a dental, and he had a bunch of teeth pulled, and so he was sent home with, some stuff for pain and antibiotics, and I was like, okay, how, like, this cat doesn't even let me touch him normally, so I'm like, how's this gonna work? He was the easiest cat I have ever pilled in my life. He was like, okay, and I went, really? Like, they handed me the stuff, and I'm like, I don't think I can get this in this cat. And I said, well, I'm gonna give it a try, and if he doesn't get it, I'll figure out something else. He was just like, sure. I think he was so petrified. He's a real scaredy cat, and I think he was just so petrified. He was like, if I just freeze, she'll do whatever it is she's doing, and then she'll leave me alone. And it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah. I used to have a cat that would just eat his medicine, drink his medicine, whatever. I mean, you could literally just put it in a little cup, a little lid, and he'd come over and just lick it up. And I just looked at him
You
like,
gotta love those
you are
guys.
so weird. Nobody
know.
likes that stuff. What's wrong with you?
Every once in a while, I'd get one of those cats as a patient, and the client would be like, oh, I made this meal and this meal and this meal, and I'm putting these herbs and supplements in, and I'm like, who is your cat?
Are you sure
They
it's
didn't
a
read the cat book.
You're not really a cat. Okay, Tony has a question here. She says, is bison a good choice for a wood personality?
It would be, actually, because beef is, but bison is less fatty. So yeah.
Okay, good. And then Sheila says, we have a 22-year-old cat. She's on ginkgo and solidago daily and Bryonia alba weekly. Is there something else I can relieve her arthritis and support her eyes? Any TCM suggestions?
Well, eyes are the window of the liver. I mean, if she'll take green lip mussel powder or deer antler velvet, our wellness formula is actually labeled for dogs and cats that has deer antler velvet and green lip mussel. It's a little chewable tablet that most cats like. My cats love it.
Nice.
So you try something like that.
That's interesting. Okay, and then Tony says, is it safe to give liquid supplements that contain alcohol to cats? Like a lot of the herbal tinctures.
A lot of the tinctures are alcohol. Some are glycerin, some, like a vegetable glycerin, some are alcohol. Yes, if it is labeled for cats, then that means it's been tested and it is safe.
Yes. Okay, and then let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss some of the questions. Let me scroll through here and see. Okay, Marlene says, how do I find a homemade food recipe for feline crystals in the bladder?
Depends on the type of crystals. And we do have quite a few cat recipes on our website.
Nice. Okay. And that was drjudymorgan.com?
naturallyhealthypets.com or drjudymorgan.com. It all goes the same place.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. Good to know. Okay, so I'm going to make sure. Okay, so Noor asked about her cat. It's difficult to know what their personalities are for a cat. I don't know what element my kitty Flocon is. I would need some help. I think just take the personality quiz, and that can really give you some ideas.
Yep.
Barbara says, how do you get a 5-month-old to stop biting?
I'm not a cat trainer.
I would suggest, redirect with the proper toy and don't let them use your hand. Don't play back. That would be the first thing I would suggest. I'm going to make sure. Let's see if anybody else has any questions. I don't want to miss anything.
No, that quiz is for dogs, cats, people, whatever.
Okay. Let me look on here. What about arthritis? Is there any way to support a cat with arthritis with TCVM?
Yeah. So, I mean, arthritis is from the water element, but it's also just a problem with inflammation because the water element rules, that's the kidneys and bladder, but they rule the bones and the teeth and the nerves and the spinal cord and the brain and reproduction. They kind of do a lot. So again, green lip mussel is very good for them. The deer antler velvet is very good for them. So that's our wellness formula, is very good for arthritis for kitties. You can also use bone broth if they'll drink that. Collagen is very good. tons of things. I actually have a blog. It's called Treating Arthritis Naturally that has a ton of things. PEA should be back in stock in a couple of weeks, but that's been amazing for arthritis for both cats, dogs, people, horses. That's been really amazing. So yeah, we have a ton. One TDC is another good one for
teeth
and
arthritis.
arthritis.
Yes, arthritis. That's right. Okay, cool. Does anybody else have any other questions? This has been so interesting. And Dr. Judy, did you say you have a course?
I have a course on food therapy, TCVM food therapy, that's coming out in a few weeks.
Okay.
But we have on drjudyu.com, we have lots of courses. We have a course called Cat Longevity, as a matter of fact, that talks about a lot of different ways we can support our cats, not necessarily from a TCVM standpoint, but just keeping our cats healthy and getting them to live into their 20s, which is our goal.
Yes, it is. Because if we give them the right foundations and we can be proactive, it's amazing how long they can live happy, healthy lives.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And then unfortunately, sometimes you do everything right and they still fall apart early. Sometimes there's some genetics that play in there too. So, or the old just crap happens.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It does. Well, do you have any final thoughts or advice on
just the big thing with cats, if you have indoor cats, studies show that over 90% of indoor cats are highly stressed. Make sure they're getting that active playtime, that interaction, climbing, hunting, pouncing, getting their prey, winning. You know, mental health is so overlooked for our animals, and stress is a huge cause of disease.
It really is, because things happen on the energetic level before they hit the physical level. So if we can just continue to remember that for ourselves too, you know, not just for our cats, but everything happens in the field. And then when it breaks through, it starts to affect it at the cellular level, and things start to go wrong.
Exactly.
Things break down, as you said. Well, this has been so interesting and informative. I thank you so much for your time. And for putting up with all the tech issues that we had earlier. If you guys are wondering why we're not on YouTube, it was a tech issue day.
It'll get there eventually. We'll just move it over. But yeah, tech was not our friend.
No, it wasn't. And but anyway, thank you so much. You're such a trooper and such a hero to all of us that are just trying to learn and do better for our cats. And I just find TCVM so interesting. I know it did such wonders for me when I had an injury that wouldn't heal, and I ended up going to a Chinese doctor. She was really from China, and she did herbal medicine and acupuncture. And I am still afraid of needles. I'm not going to lie. I don't do shots. I don't do any needles. And I run out of the room if somebody has to do something like that. So to drag myself to an actual acupuncture session, but it was either that or surgery. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going through surgery for this thing. I'll suffer through the acupuncture. And 8 weeks later, I was healed. And she says, you don't have to come back.
There you go. I had clients who were just so needle phobic that they either wouldn't stay in the room, or I would switch and we would just do laser acupuncture. I don't think it's quite as effective, but if you have an animal that won't tolerate needles, or a client who can't tolerate needles, laser acupuncture is another option. And so for some of those wood personality animals that are like, nope, you're not touching me, laser can work really well.
Yeah. So. Have you heard of aquapuncture?
Yeah, so that you do have to, like, your wood personalities aren't going to like that any better, because basically what you're doing is in the acupuncture points, you are injecting vitamin B12 or a homeopathic remedy or saline, but you're injecting a fluid into the acupuncture points, which a lot of acupuncturists like to do that because it's faster. And the animal doesn't have to sit still for so long. So, with traditional acupuncture, I'm sure you know from going to the acupuncturist, they put the needles in and then you're stuck sitting there for 20 to 30 minutes. And a lot of times our animals are like, yeah, I'm done. So horses are the best ones to treat with acupuncture, because you put the needles in and they literally will fall asleep, nose on the ground, just like, and they'll stand there for anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. And then all of a sudden the head comes up, the eyes go wide open, and they do a whole body shake and needles fly everywhere. And they're like, okay, I'm done now.
That's all I needed.
I know, they are so cool. And the first time before I did acupuncture, I had a pony that had uveitis, an eye problem. And so I called a vet who did acupuncture, and I said, look, traditional medicine is not working. I know acupuncture will work for this. Can you come work on my pony? And so she did. And literally the pony fell asleep, and we stood there chit-chatting. And 20 minutes later, the pony did that. I had never seen this before. The pony did that, and needles went flying everywhere. I was like, what's that mean? She said, it means she's done. But it was so cool because the pony literally was blind when we started. And when we finished, I led her out of the barn, and there was a big puddle that had formed, and she saw the puddle and walked around it without me taking her around it. And I was like, oh my God, she couldn't see when you started, and now she sees the puddle. Like, very cool. So I was hooked. At that point, I was like, I'm doing this.
How effective do you think in general, in most of your cases, for using acupuncture, what percentage do you think like it really nails it?
Well, that depends a lot. It's going to depend on the expertise of the practitioner. Mm-hmm. It's going to depend on, like, how well did I figure out which points I needed to use? How tolerant was the animal to the treatment? How tolerant was the owner to coming in for repeat treatments? Because it's never a one-time, although my pony was, it fixed her then, but we had to do more to keep her fixed. Yeah. It's not a one and done. And so, like, if you come in with a long-standing problem, you're coming in with allergies, you're coming in with lameness and arthritis and pain, usually it's not they might feel better after the first treatment, but to really get the healing that you're looking for, you're looking at a minimum of 5, sometimes 8. And so sometimes it's frustrating because people don't see like this immediate change after a couple of sessions. And they're like, yeah, I don't think it's helping. It's expensive. I'm not going to do it anymore. But I would encourage people to, if you have confidence in the person who's doing it, they have, good reviews and other people have seen benefit, stick it out for at least 5 sessions before you say, because I would say in the vast majority, there's going to be improvement.
Yeah. And even if you can't see it with your eyes, there could be
rebalancing, right? It's rebalancing.
From the inside.
It's rebalancing on the inside. Exactly. Yeah. And giving the body a chance to take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. So that's a very good point. Are there specific cases or types of conditions that you see acupuncture just really, really serving well?
Oh man, I had a dog with aplastic anemia, bone marrow not working at all, had 4 transfusions, had all kinds of chemo. They sent it home to die. Acupuncture and herbs and diet, dog lived another 8 years.
Wow.
Died at 15 of something totally unrelated. I've used it for everything. Autoimmune disease, cancers, kidney disease, allergies, GI problems, fear, aggression, like behavior problems. It can be used for anything. We use it for pain relief. I was looking at a Human article today where, there are some people that have major dental surgeries, major abdominal surgeries with acupuncture as their only pain relief, no anesthesia. Yeah. That's great. That seems crazy. I don't think I'm that brave.
No, and it made me think of like cats who have respiratory issues, who get the sinus, all the sinus congestion, because let's face it, they have really, really tiny nostrils, and we can't just put nose spray up their nose and open their sinuses. I think that's one of the most difficult issues to treat. But you put acupuncture needles in those points, and all of a sudden it just starts opening and draining.
Yep, it drains. And then we need phlegm drainers for food. So pears, clams, almonds, peppermint. Most cats will eat clams at least.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So we can add things like that in.
That is so cool. Yeah, that's a challenge for cat stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We can always try, but acupuncture, you know, if they'll put up with that, if they have the personality for that. But that's going to be a metal personality, probably with the sinus problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty tolerant. They don't like change, but they're pretty tolerant of needling. So they would probably be pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, this has been so cool. I thank you so much for your time and your patience today.
No problem.
Overcoming the tech world as we speak. So thank you guys for joining us. We would love to hear back from you as you try TCVM with your cat. Let us know how that goes and take the personality charts. And until next time, we will see you soon. Thanks, you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.